to start off the symposium, we have our first speaker and conference co-chairperson, Dr. Joshua Lee. Dr. Joshua Lee graduated from the NUS Yong Yew Lin School of Medicine in 2011 and obtained his Master of Medicine in Family Medicine in 2018. As a Sport and Exercise Medicine Registrar at Changi General Hospital, Dr. Lee is interested in medical education and serves as an adjunct teaching faculty at the NTU Lee Kong Chian School of Medicine. As an athlete, Dr. Lee is a club-sponsored triathlete and participates in multi-sport races from sprint to Ironman distances. And of course, during his free time, he's a competitive e-gamer as well. He will be presenting to you on managing the health of esports athletes. Over to you, Joshua.
Thank you, Manny, for the kind introduction. I can't say I'm a competitive, more like a casual gamer. Thank you one and all, and welcome once again to our SMAS Annual Symposium. I'm Joshua, and I'm a sports doctor practicing at the Singapore Sport and Exercise Medicine Centre at Changi General Hospital, also known as SSMC at CGH. Today, I'm honoured to start off the afternoon session as we learn more about this relatively new field of esports medicine. And as the first speaker, I'll start off with the basics and help to set the stage for my fellow presenters. I'm going to start my presentation to cover three main points. First, we'll start with the basic introduction of what esports is and how it's gaining importance in the world. Next, I'll touch on why I think professional gamers should also be considered athletes. And lastly, I'll introduce some of the potential health issues esports athletes can face and what we can do to manage these risks. The photo over here is of our esports athletes who represented us, Singapore, at the 2019 SEA Games in Philippines. At those games, 20 of our athletes competed in 6 events, and they did us very proud with 1 silver and 1 bronze medal. So, what is esports? Let's start with the basics. Esports is short for electronic sports, which is video gaming played competitively. Esports is usually played for people to watch for entertainment, as is traditional sport, and are played between individuals or teams. The first documented video game competition was at Stanford University all the way back in 1972, and they played this game called Space War. And you can see here how the game and the console look like. It may look ancient to us now, but you can imagine how amazing it must have been 50 years ago. And what was the grand prize? A 1-year subscription of the Rolling Stone magazine. Esports does not refer to just one particular game, or just one particular genre, but it's rather an umbrella term that refers to a whole collection of various video games, just like how athletics encompasses multiple events, from javelin to the marathon. Esports can differ in game and the platform they are played on. Video games can be played on various platforms, including smartphones, which you see over here, which make up about 45% of the global games market. On PCs, game consoles like the PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and tablets as well. And there are a whole host of game genres over here, as you can see. But probably the most popular ones include first-person shooter, or FPS, where players form teams and control characters to shoot down characters of the opposing team. And here we have Valorant. Real-time strategy, or RTS. Each player controls a base, maintains economy, and builds armies to defeat another's base. And here, of course, we have StarCraft 2. Single player versus fighting games. Each player controls a character on a one-on-one virtual combat. And here you can see Chun-Li and Ryu in Street Fighter. Sports virtual simulation games. Each player controls a virtual sports team and obeys the rules similar to the original sport. And here is NBA. Collectible card games, or CCG, each player has a collection of cards to beat the strategy of another player, and this is, of course, Hearthstone. And not to forget, mobile games, or what it stands for is multiplayer online battle arena, where teams of 5 start from opposite sides of the map and try to capture the opponent's base, and this is Dota 2. So the increase in the popularity of esports can be traced back all the way to the 1990s, where fighting games such as Street Fighter 2, Marvel vs. Capcom provided for one versus one intense spectator-friendly competition. And in the 2000s, broadband internet and LAN gaming centers sprung up and made computer gaming more prevalent. During this time, video game competitions started to be televised, further popularizing the trend. Esports grew from strength to strength in the 2010s, where it became a significant factor in the video game industry. Major successful tournaments were founded, like the World Cyber Games and the Intel Extreme Masters. And more casual gamers became professional gamers, which led to the surge in prize money and viewership. Online streaming platforms like Twitch and YouTube brought esports to the international masses for free. And in the US, some esports athletes are recognized as varsity athletes and are offered university scholarships. When looking at the overall impact, it's important to consider the total number of people both playing and watching esports globally. It is estimated that in 2021, a total of 3 billion people play video games. And this includes casual gamers, like many of us in the audience, and professional esports athletes. More than half, or 1.6 billion of us, are in Asia Pacific. While many people play video games, many people also watch video games or watch esports. The number of people watching esports tournaments has grown worldwide. An estimated 474 million people watch esports in 2021, and this growth has been aided by the pandemic and is contributed by easy and free online access. Some of you may recognize the famous Bird Nest Stadium built for the Beijing 2008 Olympic Games. This was the venue for the finals of the League of Legends World Champs in 2017. The opening performance was by singer Jay Chou, and in this sense, esports is not lacking in grandeur and hype of traditional sport. And as we start to compare esports with traditional sport, and this being a sports medicine and sports science symposium, this begs the question, are gamers even considered athletes? While my fellow speaker Thomas will later expound on the similarities esports has with traditional sport, allow me to give a quick primer. As seen from this photo, athletes come in all shapes and sizes. And when we say traditional sport or traditional athletes, what do we think about? Do we think about the lean athlete like two-time marathon Olympic champion Eliud Kipchoge? Or perhaps the muscle strength athletes like Olympic weightlifter champion Liu Xiaojun? And then there are the fit and agile athletes of team sports like soccer and basketball. But let's not forget a whole other group of sports, precision sports. And these include archery, shooting, golf, bowling, cue sports, and darts. In this regard, esports has more in common with precision sports, where skill, accuracy, and not to mention strategy are paramount. This picture features the team from China who won the League of Legends World Champs in 2019. And maybe if athleticism is not the main prerequisite for being an athlete, then maybe looking at the sport itself can give us some direction. Some feel that the lack of physicality in video gaming excludes it from being considered a sport. But what about some precision sports that we just reviewed in the previous slide? Some would say that physicality is not the hallmark of those sports. So if we use the dictionary definition of sport here, the Cambridge Dictionary defines sport as a game, competition, or activity needing physical effort and skill that is played or done according to rules for enjoyment and or as a job. Indeed, collegiate level esports athletes have talents and skills exceeding average casual gamers and of course non-gamers. In terms of manual dexterity, expert esports athletes can make up to 50 actions. A novice, which will be like me, casual gamers, can only do 50 actions per minute, or what we call APM. Expert athletes, however, can do 10 times more, up to 500 to 600 actions per minute. That's about 10 moves per second. Can you imagine that? You have to see it to believe it. They have superb hand-eye coordination and superior thinking skills and reaction time. Successful esports athletes share similar mindsets as traditional athletes during training and competition. They are motivated to keep moving forward. They are strategic thinking with fast and smart decisions. They have great knowledge about the game they play, and they are able to avoid distractions and stay focused. They can separate daily life from training and competition and cope adaptively with harassment. They have physical and mental readiness before competition. They have good communication and trust within the team, their teammates, and they, of course, maintain positive attitude and growth mindset. So what about official recognition by the International Olympic Committee? The IOC actually recognizes intellectual sport like chess and bridge as Olympic sport, but these are not contested at the Olympic Games. In fact, the IOC in October 2017 has accepted esports as a sporting activity, and they admit that players train at an intensity comparable to traditional athletes. However, they require the games to fit the rules and regulations of the Olympic movement. There is concern that some of the games played at esports are a bit too violent. And that's not to mention that in 2018, the Winter Olympics in Pyongyang, esports was held as an exhibition event. And what about Paris 2024? Not saying that esports will be featured there, no, but you can see the return of some of the sports that were featured this year in Tokyo, such as surfing, climbing, and skateboarding. But Paris 2024 will feature for the first time breakdancing. For those of you who joined us this morning, you will know that dancers can be considered as athletes as well. So who's to say that esports will never make it to the Olympics one day? The Philippines 2019 SEA Games made history as the first to feature esports as a medal event in an IOC-sanctioned multi-sport event. Singapore won 1 silver in StarCraft 2 and 1 bronze in Hearthstone. And it's indeed our pleasure to have silver medalist Thomas speak to us later. Esports will return at the next SEA Games in Vietnam in 2022. And on a bigger stage, esports will also be featured at the Hangzhou 2022 Asian Games, featuring these 8 games over here. And you may have read the news that Singapore is gearing up to be a world force in esports. And in December this year, the world will come to our shores as we organize the first ever global esports games. Esports is a unique sport in itself, and so professional gamers face unique challenges when it comes to their health and well-being. Esports athletes face a whole list of potential hazards similar to those counted in many athletic, recreational, and workplace settings. However, instead of going through them top to toe, let's try to group them so it's easier to make sense of it all. There are 5 main groups of hazards that I would like to point out today: vision health, musculoskeletal health, cardiovascular health, mental health, and sleep. My fellow speakers who are specialists in each of these fields will help me elaborate upon these points later. But for now, I just want to give a broad overview of these problems. Starting off, first, the very obvious risk to vision health. Prolonged screen exposure can lead to overtraining of vision. Esports athletes have to face screens during regular gaming practice, and when they go home, they face yet more screens on their phones, TVs, and other electronic devices, and this can lead to computer vision syndrome, which Dr. Desmond Quek will explain more in the next talk. Ms. Lee Pei-Xuan, our physiotherapist, will be explaining musculoskeletal health in detail later on. Needless to say, prolonged sitting with poor ergonomics and bad posture can lead to neck and back aches. Repetitive actions can cause fine motor strains involving mainly the hand, the wrist, and the elbow joints. On the topic of mental health, Dr. Aaron Ming will bring us through some of the common mental health issues faced by esports athletes, such as depression, anxiety, burnout, gaming addiction, and not to mention online harassment. And on the topic of sleep, we all know that sleep is important for daily functioning. And for esports athletes, sleep is a key determinant for performance, as sleep deprivation can lead to cognitive deficits, causing decreased attention and decreased reaction time, essentially slowing down the esports athlete, putting him at a competitive disadvantage. To make things worse, blue light emitted by computers and handheld devices can suppress melatonin, one of the chemicals in our brain that regulates sleep. In essence, exposure to computer screens at bedtime can negatively affect sleep and circadian rhythms, causing screen insomnia. Our final speaker, Dr. Richard, will share on how to optimize both sleep and diet for esports performance. Being a sports doctor, I just want to say a few more words with regards to cardiovascular health. We know that professional gamers can practice for more than 10 hours a day leading up to competition, and it's reported that 40% of US collegiate esports athletes do not participate in any form of exercise. And because these prolonged practice sessions, because of this, that are very long, having good dietary habits is usually not a priority. Physical inactivity and poor diet can lead to increased sitting time, also known as sedentarism, which is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. Means that it doesn't matter how much you exercise, as long as you are sedentary, you are at risk for a whole host of problems. Sitting is really the new smoking. Physical inactivity can also result in low cardiorespiratory fitness, basically meaning being unfit or deconditioned. This is also a strong predictor of mortality. It was shown that esports athletes had lower body mineral density, and this can be a risk for fractures in the future. Studies also show that competitive gamers had higher body fat with lower body mass, which can lead to overall higher BMI, body mass index. And when you're heavier, you can suffer from overloading problems resulting in musculoskeletal aches and pains. Last, and definitely not the least, poor diet and physical inactivity can lead to what we call metabolic syndrome, which is a collection of related diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity. Metabolic syndrome is a big risk factor for severe conditions such as heart attack and stroke. Many of the potential problems I mentioned earlier will start affecting players in the mid to long term. So how can we prevent them early before they become permanent problems in the future? To optimize cardiovascular health today, we need to improve cardiorespiratory fitness, reduce sedentary behavior, and maintain a healthy BMI. The requirements to improve cardiorespiratory fitness for esports athletes are similar to that of the general population. The WHO recommends 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise per week. Strength training should also be done at least 2 times a week, focusing on the core and shoulder muscles. Now, these recommendations can feel daunting at first, but with a suitable and progressive training plan, physical fitness can be built up slowly but surely. To that end, teams can consider engaging strength and conditioning specialists to help develop exercise programs for their athletes. And this has already been done in professional teams overseas. To reduce sedentary behavior, we need to increase exercise. When we spend more time exercising, we essentially decrease time being sedentary. We should also increase our incidental physical activity, which is basically our activities of daily living, like doing housework, taking the stairs instead of taking the lift, or walking instead of driving short distances. When we take regular breaks in between games, and to get up and stretch and walk around, we reduce the amount of time spent just sitting down. And to that end, the use of fitness trackers with step counters and movement reminders are useful tools to help us, to remind us to just simply get up and move a little. And the last point of optimizing cardiorespiratory health, cardiovascular health, is to maintain a healthy BMI. Having a healthy diet and regular exercise is nothing new, and yet it's really easier said than done, isn't it? Let's not forget other lifestyle factors that are just as important, such as smoking cessation, alcohol intake in moderation, getting adequate sleep, and stress management. Weight management can be a challenge for some individuals, and sometimes some help may be required for medical and allied health professionals. And just as I've presented, esports athletes face many number of health hazards on their way to achieve excellence. As such, they require a team of healthcare professionals to work together. Just like in traditional sport, athletes work closely with their coaches and sports science, sports medicine teams. In esports, a multidisciplinary team approach has been suggested to not only manage potential problems, but also optimize performance. Esports athletes require support of healthcare professionals who actually understand their unique care needs. In today's symposium, we have a whole lineup of a few key members of this esports health team model: psychiatry, ophthalmology, dietetics, physiotherapy, and myself from sports medicine. Each of us will dive a little deeper into their specialty fields to explain how they can help esports athletes excel in competition. In summary, esports is increasingly being recognized internationally as a sport. As such, professional gamers should also receive similar care as professional athletes. And because esports athletes have unique health hazards, a multidisciplinary esports health team model has been suggested to not only prevent and treat health problems, but also go beyond that to optimize each and every athlete for high-level performance. And with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you all very much for your attention. Please post any questions you might have in the Q&A box, and we will take it at the end of the next speaker session. Thank you.